Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. As you can see in the top left, this is the bug reporter because I'm on the PTR. I did manage to find some time today to hop on the PTR and smack a target dummy for a little bit. I had about an hour to do it, and now I've got about 13 more minutes. I'll probably go a little longer than that, but I've got about that much time before I was planning on going to bed to get this video recorded. So I want to just give you guys my very first thoughts, having read all of the stuff in my previous 3 videos, having read all of those Wowhead articles to kind of get an idea of what's going to happen with Shadow Priest, and then now having spent about an hour messing around with it on some target dummies, right? So a couple things I will mention initially. First, I have not done any raid testing yet as a Shadow Priest, as anything honestly, but I have not done any raid testing yet. And then secondly, I haven't done any Mythic Plus yet. So the 2 main forms of content, of PvE content, that I'm going to be doing in 10.1, I have not done any of yet. So take my advice and my thoughts with a grain of salt. And then on top of that, another thing that I'll say is, in the past, I was very, very deep into Shadow Priest. I knew basically everything there was to know about it. These days, that is very much not the case. Life kind of caught up to me. I got a full-time job. I have forgotten a lot of things about WoW, stopped putting as much time into it. As you can tell, my channel has been dead for a while. That's because of this. So something that I'll say is, the depth of knowledge that I have had before, I don't have anymore, right? So there are going to be certain interactions and things, like if you look at my damage down here, let's just get into this. If you look at my damage down here, this is a 5-minute me hitting 1 target dummy, right? And this number, 67.3k, I did this twice. This is the higher of the 2. The first one was like 66.9, so pretty close. But this number, 67.3k, I do not think is like a theoretical maximum for what a Shadow Priest could be doing right now, the way I played, right? I think that I'm not perfect, right? Obviously. And I would say that I'm pretty far away from what I used to be. So, some other things to mention about this 67k number, because I know it seems pretty low. 2 big things. One, I didn't use any combat potions. You can see this is where my combat potion usually goes. I don't have it down there because I just went and started hitting things. Didn't really take the time to get everything set up. And then secondly, I was by myself, so I didn't have anyone. I didn't use any drums. I didn't have anyone to lust me. So this is 5 minutes of fighting a target dummy without any battle pots and without any lust, and being pretty rusty, right? So 67.3k, pretty low, although I will say, from the raid testing logs and videos that I've seen, I don't think it's that low. I think it's like a pretty decent number. Although I know that there are some things, like I know that this Insidious Ire talent, I'm still really bad at playing around this. So I know that there are little optimizations I can be doing to bump this number up. But not having Lust, I think, is a pretty big deal. And then also not using a combat potion is a pretty big deal. I think this is a decent number for just doing what I did. So let's take a bit of a look at the breakdown, and then I will go back to my talents and show you and talk a little bit about these things. Because, like I said, I'm not as deep into the talent choices. I kind of just threw something together that I thought was pretty okay. So if we look at the breakdown, Devouring Plague shouldn't be a surprise, is by far the strongest ability we have still. Our insanity generation is a lot different than it used to be. Before, you had moments where you were generating so much insanity that you couldn't spend it fast enough, and now it feels like there are times where you can't generate enough, although they're very, very brief. And those times feel better now, because instead of pressing 3 full-channeled Mind Flays in a row, which feels really bad, you can cast a Mind Spike. You can cast Mind Spikes, basically, is the difference. You cast Mind Spikes 3 times in a row instead of just channeling a Mind Flay, which feels a little bit better, because I don't know why it feels better to not channel. Yeah, probably just because all the damage comes out at once and you don't have to just sit there and wait. and cancel it early if you have to move or something. It's nice to, get all the damage out at once rather than channeling. The other thing I'll say, my Mind Spike Insanity damage is number 2 over Mind Blast on this pull. Although, again, like I was saying, I think part of that is my failure to play around Insidious Ire correctly. I think in an ideal world, if I was playing closer to perfect, because that's something else that I don't think is possible. I don't think anyone can play quote-unquote perfectly. But I think if I was playing closer to perfect, Mind Flay would be number 2, and Mind Blast would be number 2, and Mind Spike Insanity would be number 3. At least that's kind of how it looks in the logs that I've looked at for other people who I think are playing better than I am, to be frank. Anyway, so then something that's interesting, Inescapable Torment is number 4, pretty close to Mind Blast, actually. And then Void Torrent is pretty far. And then it goes down and down. Idol of Cthulhu is really strong right now, it seems. Shadow Word Death, this is with the Death Speaker talent. So I'm using this when I was doing this poll, I was using Shadow Word Death as a very high priority spell when I had these Death Speaker procs. I think that ideally, this is pretty obvious if you just think through it. Ideally, you would only use those deaths. You would want to get as much mastery out of these Death Speaker procs as possible, right? You would only want to use them when you are in Dark Ascension would be good, and then also when you have all 3 dots on the target. That would be the best Death Speaker proc. Obviously, you can't choose to the full extent when you get to use them because they proc randomly, but it is probably worth it to save a Death Speaker proc for a Devouring Plague and then Death Speaker proc if you already have. If your next global was going to be a Devouring Plague and you get a Death Speaker proc, it's probably better to still cast the Devouring Plague so you get your 3 mastery spells up and then cast your Death Speaker proc instead of just sending it as soon as possible. Obviously, there are some caveats to that, but so the other key thing I wanted to say, Inescapable Torment is really high up here, but the melee damage from Mindbender is really low. This Inescapable Torment is because of these Death Speaker procs as well. It's not just like a Mindbender thing that makes this so strong. It's mostly because I'm getting these extra Shadow Word Deaths. And then also I believe that there was a talent in here. Yeah, this Shadowy Insight that we talked about before. Shadowy Insight is giving me extra Mind Blasts as well. So if you're not taking Shadowy Insight, which I think you will be, but if you're not, and you're also not taking Death Speaker, then your Inescapable Torment damage is going to be way, way lower. And that's some criticism that people have given the current iteration of Shadow Priest on the PTR right now, is that it kind of forces you, especially with the tier set, the 4-piece of the tier set bonus, it kind of forces you into this Mindbender build where you're going to be using a lot of these Inescapable Torments to do a bunch of your damage with Mindbenders as you're getting these free Mindbenders that we don't know yet because it's not implemented, but I would guess those free Mindbenders are also going to proc these Inescapable Torment Rifts, in which case this damage would be, a lot higher. At least 2 times. You'd get 2 times the Rifts every time you have 2 Mindbenders out, right? Because you could theoretically have your regular Mindbender out. It depends on how the tier set works. This is a bit of a tangent. Sorry to go into this. If the tier set gives you if you have Mindbender out and you get your tier set proc, your 4-piece, we don't know yet, but if it does give you a second Mindbender, then that means Inescapable Torment will do extra damage, potentially, right? Because both Mindbenders could generate a Rift. Or the alternative is when that 4-piece bonus procs, if your Mindbender is already out, it just extends it by 5 seconds. My guess is that it'll give you a second Mindbender, but there is a chance that it just extends it. And if it just extends it, then your Inescapable Torment damage will still go up, because you'll have a longer time to fit in more Devouring Plagues and Mind Blasts, but I don't think it'll go up as much because you're not getting 2 times as many Rifts for every one of these that you cast in that window, right? But yeah, that's the other thing I was going to say about my breakdown is this melee damage from my Mindbender. Crazy, crazy low. it's like as bad as my Rage Feather. For a trinket, Rage Feather is crazy strong. For a regular spell, melee of this Mindbender is really weak, right? So don't expect a ton. If you do get 2 Mindbenders when it procs, you know, you'll get extra melee damage, but this melee damage is pretty low. Like, I only cast 10 Mind Games in this amount of time, and they did more damage than all of my melees from my Mindbender. So take that how you will. Okay, next I want to go a little bit over this talent build that I did, that I kind of threw together. I just grabbed a bunch of the things that are likely to be played. Idol of Cthulhu seems really strong right now. If we go back to the breakdown really quick, you can see it's number 7 on my damage. You could replace it with Yogg-Saron potentially, and probably not N'Zoth in pure single target. But yeah, I imagine you're going to be playing Idol of Cthulhu, and you definitely want Insidious Ire. Yeah, I think you definitely want Insidious Ire. Although you could get your Void Torrent down to 30-second cooldown. But yeah, I think especially with the 2-piece bonus giving you extra Mind Blast damage, it will probably be worth it to take Insidious Ire. Anyway, you got some other cool things like Phantasmal Pathogen. This is like guaranteed to be taken in single target, I think, but also has some interesting implications for Mythic Plus. Because of this ability, Void Touch, giving you 50 more maximum insanity. Sorry for my speaking. Because of this, you could potentially bank a lot of insanity and then dump it on a bunch of Devouring Plagues on a bunch of different things, and then spam with Lust and PI and all your things, all of these Shadowy Apparitions generators, which could potentially do a bunch more damage. Or maybe even you would spawn a bunch of Shadowy Apparitions, and as they're all about to crash into your mobs, you'd go through and put your last 3 globals would be Devouring Plague, Devouring Plague, Devouring Plague, so that they all do 150% increased damage as they hit, right? Dark Ascension has basically taken over Void Eruption in all forms of content, at least according to the initial sims and according to what I've read in the Priest Discord. It seems that Void Eruption is just not worth taking ever anymore. Although I'm sure that there are going to be some very niche situations where it might be. Right now, I would say be prepared to play a lot of Dark Ascension. And then, yeah, the other changes, you got things like Psychic Link is just 1 instead of 2 now, and it's way up here. It's a 1-point talent, I should say. Shadow Crash being on a 20-second cooldown is kind of nice, and I was correct about the Insanity gen being nerfed pretty heavily, although I think that the changes to our rotation have made it where we're not getting as much Insanity as we used to be, right? But I think that that's okay because of how we play, our rotation plays now, right? You're going to be spending more time building up Insanity, but then you're also going to be spending less time dumping a bunch of Devouring Plagues, right? Because you have other spells that you're going to want to cast as well. Although, like I said before, Devouring Plague is very high priority. It does a lot of damage. Anything else to say before we go look at the logs? I may have mentioned this already. I do plan on doing some keys tomorrow, so keep an eye out for a Mythic Plus video. And then let's just go ahead real quick and look at some of these logs. So the way I got here, I'll open a new tab. If you go to warcraftlogs.com, scroll all the way down below all this All-Star, Vault of the Incarnates, and Mythic Plus stuff. You can find Aberrus, the Shadowed Crucible. Come over here and click on All Reports. Once you get here, these are all of the PTR logs that people have made. There's multiple pages. You can filter these down to specific things. So one thing that I'm going to do is, or that I already did, is I click on all bosses. I know the 2 that got tested were Rashok and Zaskarn, right? I'll just call them Skarn. These 2 were tested, so you can filter it down to just those bosses. It's already basically filtered to just these 2 bosses, but you can filter it down to just this 1. And then beyond that, I like to just look at only the kills for this and then also you can filter it down to only kills of this boss that had a Shadow Priest in them. So you click on all classes, go to Priest, go to Shadow. So as of today, only this many logs have a kill with a Shadow Priest in it, and I pulled up a bunch of them to look at. So let's go through them a bit. So here is, what guild is this? Do I know who? Yeah, this is Denial of Service. So pretty top end guild. And here's what their Shadow Priest did, right? So this is on Skarn, and if I remember correctly, let's see. Yeah, so we go to Skarn, and then if we go to all enemies, so this is the one that has a couple of golems that spawn over time. So this is not a pure single target boss fight. And if we look, we can see Shadow Priest is number 2 on the meters. Oh, this is Bithindel. I like that guy. Shadow Priest. Oh, and Shu, my other friend. Shadow Priest is number 2 on the meters. Obviously looking pretty strong. But if we look at other things like how much damage did they do to the golems? Wow, a Destruction Warlock did a crap ton of damage to those. Shadow Priest is number 2, which is nice. I would expect Shadow Priest to be pretty high. And then if we look at just boss damage, Shadow Priest goes down pretty significantly. In fact, this looks a lot closer to my 5-minute single target sim, right? DPS, 65k to the boss, whereas I was doing 67k on a single target dummy, right? So obviously he's dealing with more things than I was running around doing raid boss stuff. This is just one log. If you go through a bunch of different logs, like we can look at this one. This is Northern Sky from EU. We go back to Skarn as well. Let's go look at their damage done. Hopefully it loads. There we go. On this one, they had a Warlock who was absolutely popping off. That's crazy. Let's go look at boss damage. So on this fight, this guy did decently better, right? And there are some other things to think about, like kill timing. This one's 13 seconds faster. If we look at add damage, the Shadow Priest is number 1 on add damage in this one. Very interesting. They don't have a Destruction Warlock, so that could be part of it. The Destruction Warlock is taking a lot of the damage over here. Well, I mean, this is crazy. 24k compared to 11k being the top on this. Like, this guy doing 11k to the mobs is less than what this Shadow Priest was doing. Very interesting. I wonder why that is. So on this boss, at least, Shadow Priest seems super strong. We can take a brief look at healing and see how Shadow Priests look healing-wise. Not super high from this guy compared to what we're doing right now. Also not super high, but they are very similar. So if we go look at this guy's casts, how many Vampiric Embraces did he have? So Vampiric Embrace, if we go look at the PTR, is on a 1.3 minute cooldown. And this guy, man, I hate that bug where those things pop up. This guy had 3 Vampiric Embraces, 3.9 minutes. He could have fit 1 more Vampiric Embrace into this fight, it looks like. If we click on this, yeah, he had time in here to get another one, or push these 3 back and get a 4th. So he missed a use of Vampiric Embrace. And then this guy, if we come in here and look at his Vampiric Embraces, he had 1 cast of it. And it was at like 4 minutes in the fight. So this guy missed a bunch of healing as well. So looking at these healing numbers is not going to be a great example of what Shadow Priest could theoretically do, because both of these guys didn't heal very much. This guy pressed it at least 3 times, which is good. You can get 4 casts for sure in this fight. Let's see these other guys. So if we go to Skarn, oh, this was a much faster kill, a minute faster on this one. Damage done. And this kill time is going to be better for Shadow Priest as well. So this guy did 67k, interesting. Healing, and then we go to the Shadow Priest. So this Shadow Priest was doing way more healing than those guys. 16k, almost double. This is closer to what I was expecting. His Vampiric Embrace during his initial cooldowns is huge. That's something that I would suggest if you don't have a good eye for when, or you don't have a plan for when you want to use Vampiric Embrace in a fight. Just macro it to your power infusion, and then when you press that button, you'll give whoever... So first off, always give somebody else power infusion if you're playing Twins of the Sun Priestess, which you should be every single time. So when you press that button, you'll give somebody else power infusion. you'll cast your Vampiric Embrace, and then you'll be in your cooldown window, and you'll do 80k HPS, right? Like this guy. Oh, he Desperate Prayered. Interesting. I wonder why he needs the Desperate Prayer within the first 15 seconds of the fight. So anyway, yeah, he cast Vampiric Embrace 3 times as well. Looks like he missed a cast at the end, probably because he had a shorter kill time. If he had gotten enough time here, I would guess that he has this macroed into his Power Infusion, like I would suggest. Here's another one for Skarn. This is Vision on Thrall, a pretty high-ranking Thrall guild. That last one was Consequence on Storm Rage. If we look at Vision's kill, damage done to Skarn. I don't know if I looked at this on this guy. Damage done to Skarn from this Dread Tendies guy. Okay, he's about 62k. Let's pull all of these up real quick. Enemies, damage done. Nope, friendlies, damage done to Skarn. That's what we want to see. So this guy did 73k. This guy did damage done to Skarn. This guy did 65k. This guy did 62k. And this person did 70k. So it looks like anywhere between 60. So this is just 4 logs, right? We've only got like 10 to go off of. But in these 4 logs, on single target, it looks like Shadow Priest can do anywhere between 70 to, or 72, 73 was it? Yeah, around 73 at best to maybe, 65 or 62 at worst. And this is, again, there are a lot of other things that go into this single target damage. This is not a pure single target fight, so obviously they have to deal with these golems occasionally, and there are other mechanics that they have to do. If we take a brief look at the other boss fight, the Jarden Elder, which is not actually the name of the boss. It's like Rakoth or something, I don't remember. We look at this one. So Shadow Priest really high on this Denial of Service kill. This one, I think, is a pure single target fight. Yeah, this Urzul is a Demon Hunter, Necrolord Demon Hunter thing, right? Or the old Necrolord Demon Hunter thing. Yeah, and so on this kill, this guy did 79k single target. On this kill, yeah, is this right? Yeah. This kill, Rashok is his name. This person did 76k. This Affliction Warlock popped off. Holy cow, 100k. On this kill, around 67k. And on this kill, it looks like 78k. So a decent spread here, actually. Not too crazy. It looks like around 80k is a pretty good amount of damage. Although, yeah, I don't know. It would be interesting to see the guild to private log, because it feels like if Affliction Warlocks are able to do 98, 100k, and then these guys are able to do 88, 75, I would guess that Shadow Priest would be up here closer to, maybe not this crazy, but at least closer to these. And maybe there are other things that I'm not taking into account, like how the fight lines up for different people's cooldowns and things. Okay, anyway, this has probably gotten too long. I've probably said too much already. So I'm going to leave it there. Like I said before, I do plan on doing some keys in the near future. I would love to make it to some raid testing. Maybe one of these days I can take some vacation time or something, and, or Blizzard can announce some raid testing that happens on a weekend, so us working folks aren't missing out. So hopefully I can get some more data on those fronts. But for now, I would love to hear your comments, your feedback in the comments below. What do you guys think of this kind of video? Also, what do you think of Shadow Priests in general? And if anybody can go to the Shrine of Two Moons in Pandaria and fight the furthest right target dummy and post a 5-minute DPS section that's higher than mine. If you can, post your high scores in the comments below. I'd love to see what. And remember, there's no lust, there's no combat potion, and you need to have taken like a 9-month break from the game. Anyway, so I'd love to see what your guys' DPS looks like as well. Feel free to join my Discord if you want to post them there, or just leave a comment down below. of how much damage you did. If you say anything more than 100k, I'm going to say that you're lying. Okay, so that's going to be it. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.